Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. My name is Charles Patrick. I am the Chancellor and Chief Academic Officer here at Penn State Fayette, the Eberly campus. We are honored to host the Housing Summit today with our great partners at Fay Penn Economic Development Council. If you ask anyone in the room and a whole lot of people out in the county, what are the top 3 issues that are in Fayette County, almost assuredly affordable housing and especially affordable housing would be in the list of top 3. We all know it. We all know that it connects to economic development, and we're very pleased that Fay Penn has chosen to do this study and host it and be able to bring some data to us to see what we can do about this issue in Fayette County. So we appreciate the partnership as always. And now I'd like to introduce Laura Coons, who's the Executive Director of Fay Penn Economic Development Council.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick. We always appreciate you and Penn State Fayette campus and your beautiful auditorium and facilities, your food service. It's always great to be here. You graciously have invited us back. We started in November of 22 with our kind of initial kickoff, and that was, you know, more of a starting the conversation kind of event. So here we are, you know, more than a year later. And we've decided that we needed to get a really in-depth study and assess the county. But before I get into that and introduce the star of the show here, I want to thank and recognize our Housing Steering Committee with Fay Penn, because you folks have been very supportive. Your input's been invaluable. You all come from different perspectives. So I want to ask each of you to please stand and be recognized, starting with our board member, Jim Stark. Jim. Andrew French of the County Redevelopment Authority. Where's Andrew? There he is. Mark Rafel. Where's Mark? Hey, Mark. Thank you. Mark is our County Economic Development Coordinator, and we work closely with him on a variety of things. And Mark understands, as we do, that economic development is, you know, intersecting with housing. We have to address these issues. Tammy Nedrow, who is the Chief of Staff for Commissioner Scott Dunn. Tammy comes with a great background and understands construction and housing. Rob Slater, the Principal of Slater Engineering. We appreciate Rob and his input. And Luann Kinney. Where's Luann? Luann, thank you for being part of our steering committee, because Luann is the person who is an actual real estate broker, and Misty recruited her, which I think is terrific, because she has some great information she's going to share with us. So again, in November 22, we wanted to start the conversation, and we've been busy, and I want to particularly thank our staff member, Misty Hildebeidel. Misty is also a realtor. She's our workforce coordinator, but we have pulled her into this housing conversation, and as this has become part of your mission, I know, because she cares about housing. She's sold a lot of homes to first-time home buyers, and Misty has been a great asset to help coordinate this. So I just want to thank you, Misty. I want to have a round of applause for that. So in talking with Andrew and some other folks who deal with housing on a more regular basis, we did understand that maybe the data we needed to look at wasn't as current. So I think the last time that the county had maybe a full-blown assessment was probably about 2005. Is that right, Andrew? So we thought it is time to do this again. So I don't know, I'm looking for other board members from Fay Penn who might be in the audience. There we go. Hi, Rusty. Rusty Smalley, thank you. I want to thank you and the board for supporting this effort, and Jim Stark, of course, serves in both those roles, because you know, you supported our desire to sponsor this study. And in doing that, we wanted to make this as comprehensive and as real as possible. So Misty and I interviewed a number of firms, and I was very pleased that we were able to get the availability of Bowen National Research. I had worked with Bowen in other lives, and they are well known in the region. Excuse me, I'm going to have to get some water. We've all still got that little bit of cough, right? Bowen is a national research firm, and while they're based in Ohio, their principal, Patrick Bowen, actually has a background from this area. You're from Washington County, right?
Yeah.
So he actually drove down this morning from his mom's house. So I love it when we have the mom network out there. And but anyway, Patrick I think the show is really about you and the data, and we knew when we hired you we were going to get our money's worth, and we have. So we're going to have your presentation in just a moment, and then Misty has scheduled us so we'll have a break, and then we're going to have a moving forward discussion. So that's maybe once you all take in the data, we want to encourage, we have a few people who've asked to talk, and I see Crystal Simmons is here too from the Uniontown Redevelopment Authority. Crystal, thank you. We really want you to participate, ask questions. We're also going to have an open mic for the general audience later. And then we have Commissioner Scott Dunn and Commissioner Dave Lohr and Commissioner Vince Vasidis here. We appreciate all of you and working with you on this. We know that you understand this is an issue we have to tackle in Fayette County. So later you'll hear from the commissioners toward the end of the event because we'd like to hear their reaction to all this. So that said, Patrick has been involved in this for how many years, Patrick, have you
27.
been? 27 years. And I will tell you, he knows the industry very well. He's highly respected, and he knows these different elements. And he helped us as we were defining the scope, because we didn't want to come in with preconceptions. We didn't want to come in and say, well, we know we have enough affordable housing in Fayette County. It's the market rate. We know we need rental housing, but we may not need single family. We didn't want to come into that way, right, Misty? Patrick encouraged us to keep an open mind and look at all these elements and, all these sectors. So that's what we've done, and we feel we really have a great result. So with that, I'm going to hand it over. It's your show, Patrick, and thank you so much for coming to tell us about the study.
Testing, yep, there we go. All right. Well, thank you for showing up. Laura greeted me in the lobby, and she's like, Patrick, I came through with your request about the weather. And I said, no, you didn't. She goes, yeah, it's gorgeous out there. And I said, I would like, this is honestly, I did ask this. I said, I would like it to be sunny and 70 degrees. She goes, I thought you said sunny and 17. So it is a little chilly out there, and it sounds like it's going to get colder here in the next few days. As Laura said, and thanks to Laura and Misty for all their help. You really were instrumental in getting helping us get into contact with people, and you're going to see the results of even the community input. You helped us get word out, so I think you'll see the benefits of that. As Laura also said, I was born in Charleroi, so 1 mile north of your county boundary. As a young man, my parents would take me and my, at that point, 7 siblings down to Ohiopyle every summer, and so we were down here quite a bit. But we've also done a lot of work here in the county for individual projects for developers over the last decade. So it's good to be home of sorts, and again, we are a national firm, and that's a good thing for you all. Because we go all over the nation and we see all kind of markets, we bring all this experience and knowledge to the table. So even beyond what you're going to learn here today, working forward, moving forward, whatever route you folks want to take, we probably can get you good examples. And a lot of communities we've worked with. We worked with about, I think we just past 100 communities that we've studied. Communities, counties, cities, regions, even states. We've studied states. In fact, we're about to undertake the whole state of Kentucky here soon. So nonetheless, that's a benefit to you all because, again, as we continue to work with communities and see what they've done after we've left, we can share that success, and should you go down certain roads or explore things, we can probably stop you and say, hey, be careful, this community tried to do that and it didn't work quite the way they did. So anyway, a lot of stuff we can bring beyond today. So I'm like a weatherman. I'm going to point out a lot of stuff, and I did, as I was mentioning to some of the folks here, I ran through the slides real quick before everybody got here, and if you're in the back half of this room, it's a little bit tough to see some of the stuff up in the tables that I'll have, but I will walk you through those things and point out some key aspects. All right, so as Laura said, we worked together to kind of work through a scope of work. So we looked at a lot of different demographic information, economic information. The third bullet point is the housing needs assessment. So absolutely, we looked at your housing stock, whether it was the rental supply, if you can rent anything, we covered it. If you can buy something, it's in here. So both historical information on home sales, but also what's currently available to buy. So a lot of good housing information. We quantified the housing needs. How big are the needs? What price points? And is it for rentals? Is it for sale? I'm going to share that with you here today. A lot of great community input through surveys. As also my staff made a lot of phone calls to talk to people in the end. again, with Misty and Laura's help, we probably had about 500 points of contact. So the community, not just Bowen pulling data and telling you our assessment, the community spoke up, and I suspect a lot of you here today participated in that. And then we have recommendations that to be considered, not necessarily to follow exactly, but things to think about. All right, so the whole goal was the county, the primary study area, Fayette County. But we also broke up, per Laura and Misty's request, we broke up the county into these regions. The study has a lot of information on these different regions of the county. You'll see a little bit here today. I didn't want to lose focus on what's happening county-wide, so you will get to see some sub-market data, but for the most part, I'm going to try to keep it to the county as a whole. All right, again, if you're in the back and you have trouble reading some of this, I'll try to walk you through a lot of it. This is household trends. So the study is armed with tons of demographics. We have a lot of population information. I'm not sure I have anything about the population in this presentation because in my world, we're assessing housing needs. I want to talk about households. I want to talk about families or couples or single people, but the households. How are they changing? Who are those households? So this is demographics trends from 2010 projected up to 2027. You've been trending down, losing households over time. You are, if nothing changes, if this county does nothing else, no incentives, you don't encourage developers to come here, don't promote this housing needs assessment, which will help. But if you don't do anything and you just sit back, you are expected to continue to lose households. And that's really universally true for each one of the submarkets in the different colors here. This was right in the middle is 2020 to 2022, so the kind of the COVID years. But even projecting forward, each part of the county is expected to lose households. Now, the fact that you're losing households, that doesn't mean you don't have housing issues and you don't need more housing. You absolutely do. So I'll try to make my case for that here today. Because even though you're losing households, you have changes occurring. So this is households by age groups. Again, Fayette County on the top, Pennsylvania on the bottom, just as a base of comparison. And these are the different age groups, 25 and younger, all the way up to 75 and older. The 2022 and 2027 numbers, and then the change, so that's this row, what is expected to change over the next 5 years when we start to pull this data. Where are you going to grow? You can also see it here in the graph, probably easier illustration. You're expected to grow in that 35 to 44 age group a little bit. But look at this. If you were going to flag key findings, here's number one. Here's where all your growth is expected to occur. That does not mean seniors are flocking here. That means a lot of seniors are here and they're going to age in place. So that does matter. As you start to think forward towards your housing needs, these folks are going to need different housing. Some will want to stay in their homes as long as they can. I understand that. Some won't. Some will want to downsize. They may want to move into a rental, whatever the case may be. So you do need to think about, as they change, as they become more bigger part of your area, what kind of housing can this county offer to help them out? I will tell you this, if you compare the county's numbers with the state of Pennsylvania, these are not unusual trends. There's nothing unusual happening here in Fayette County that's not happening in the state of Pennsylvania or the nation as a whole. You have essentially two waves of changes in terms of households by age in the country. You've got that wave of the older millennials, so that 35 to 44 age group, and then you've got that 65 and older. So these are normal trends happening around the country. Everybody is facing similar challenges or trends that you all have. Here's a problem. Don't want to use that word too much, but here's a problem. You're losing your young people, this 25 to 34 age group. That is happening in a lot of non-metropolitan areas. A lot of younger people, younger millennials, they're heading into the urban areas for multiple reasons: lifestyle, culture, jobs, whatever it might be. That's a normal trend in a county similar to Fayette County. So again, nothing unusual, but as you start to think forward, if a goal, and I'm not saying this should be, I'm just throwing this out, if a goal is to hold on to the young people, again, many reasons why they won't stay here, but housing absolutely is one of those contributing factors. All right, so now this is renter households by income level. County on the top, state of Pennsylvania on the bottom. Big findings from this, I circled this here. Where is all your expected growth among renter households? Those that make over $50,000 a year. Again, it's households, not people. Up through 2027, that's where all your growth is. Similar to the state of Pennsylvania. You've got some growth here in this 50 to 59 area, but look, you're losing a lot of folks here in these lower income households. Some, it's just a matter of their incomes are climbing. They're expected to climb, right? We've had wages climb relatively fast here in the last couple of years around the country. So some of these people are just moving up, but some are leaving. And probably some of that has to do with the housing that you have or don't have, the affordability of that housing. But one of the cautionary tales I put out there to folks is, even though you see something like this decline of these lower income renter households, and somebody makes the argument, why are we building affordable housing? Section 8, tax credit, whatever, affordable rental housing, why are we building it if we're losing these people? These people are living in housing they shouldn't be in. There's people living in housing they absolutely cannot afford. I'm going to show you those data points. There's people on wait lists to get into affordable housing, so there absolutely is a need for affordable housing. I don't want those numbers to mislead you. So this is the same thing, but now owner households. Where's all your expected growth? Those that make over $60,000 a year, the declines among some of the lower income households. Look at Pennsylvania as a whole. This is where all the growth is expected in the state among those that make over $100,000 a year. So again, not abnormal trends, but these trends are going to affect what kind of housing you should be thinking about and planning for. And by the way, this study, if I did my job right, this study is armed with so much information. So for elected officials in this room, there'll be good data points for you to use to make decisions or to make your case with the public. For economic development, this is armed with so much information for you all to think about as you try to attract businesses and things like that. For developers, oh my gosh, there is so much information that probably almost no one in this audience cares about, but this study has it, because I know I want the most bang out of this study, so we put information in there in the study. For developers, things they're looking for. How about investors, lenders of housing, studies armed with stuff that they will absolutely hone in on because it's telling them there are opportunities here in Fayette County. So, and I'll share some of it with you today. All right, so this is an example. I was talking about people moving, particularly the younger people leaving the area. Again, this map is probably hard to see, but there's Fayette County. Where are people coming from? So the green arrow is coming in. Where are they going? You got a lot of folks going up to Allegheny County. So you can see here, in the end, this is, are you gaining or losing people, people. Where you're gaining from, Westmoreland, Washington County, you got some folks, it's an annual number. Roughly, that's how many people are moving here into the county. But where are you losing them to? You can see in red, I've got Allegheny County up there. So again, that's not abnormal. This is pretty normal for folks to head towards the metropolitan areas. And so that's happening here. How about the incomes? These are people moving, and I put over here on the left-hand side, these are people moving within the county, so I'm not so much focused on them. Who's coming here on an annual basis? And this shows you the jobs that they're taking. These are people that come from Pennsylvania here into Fayette County. These are people that come from out of state. And so anything in red here is kind of normal. We see that in a lot of markets because lower income households might be more mobile because they're just looking for opportunities and things like that. Or people that are more affluent might stay where they are. They've got an executive position or a managerial position, so they might stay where they are, so they move a little bit less. But look at this. This is interesting to me. This is a little bit different. Those that make over $75,000 a year, they're coming in here to take those jobs. Those are people coming from out of state. So again, as you think about what kind of housing we need and who we should be attracting, you could see currently these are the trends that are happening to those that move here and the jobs that they take. All right, so if I was going to flag something else, again, number one in my head is probably the seniors and the change that's happening with them. Here's another one. I'd flag this as one of the major findings of this study. Who commutes here? So I showed you don't have very much growth, right? It's projected to decline in terms of number of households. So again, thinking about the development community, why would they want to build here? If this area is shrinking in terms of household, where are the opportunities? Why would I want to invest in this area? Here it is. 14,000 people commuting into this county every day for work. Right? Some of you probably see the impact of traffic and go, yeah, we know we got people coming in. 14,000. That's a lot of people relative to how many work here. So it's 14,000 coming in, you got 21,000 that are living here and working here, so what is that, about 40%? And then you got about 28,000 that go outside the area to work every day. To me, in terms of a strategy, trying to think forward, these are the people that can change everything, these commuters. One of the things we learned, we didn't get enough surveys here for me to conclude this, but I can promise you this is probably applicable to Fayette County. We have surveyed commuters around the country, markets very similar to Fayette County. And we asked these people here, again, in other markets, we asked these people, look, if housing was available and affordable in the community for which you work, would you move here? And typically that answer is about 40%. Let's go conservative. Take 20% of these. That's a lot of people that absolutely would move to this area, and there's a lot of reasons why they would choose to move and not. Taxes, schools, I mean, all kind of things. But the convenience of being close to work, they'll move. But why aren't they moving? I'm going to show you here in just a minute. You have very little housing available. You probably know that or sense it. When I show you the numbers, if let's say everybody, all 14,000 said, I'll move here. Yeah, I want to be here. You could accommodate so little of them because you don't have housing available. In my opinion, I think one of the things that's holding this county back in terms of growth opportunities is you don't have available inventory, you don't have affordable inventory, you don't have a good quality of housing stock, and so it's keeping these people from making that decision to come here. When we looked at who these people were, it's that bottom half on the left hand of the side, who are they? Over half of them are between the ages of 30 and 54. So these are going to be families, probably, in many cases. And look at that, 44% of them earn over $40,000 a year. Laura, you deal with economic development. This is an economic development problem. And I'll point this out to you because, again, I'm trying to kind of connect some of the dots for you all. These people come into your area every day and work. They earn wages here. They may spend money at lunchtime. Maybe they get their oil changed here. But guess what? They take most of that money out of here. They're going back home, and they spend their hard-earned money in this county, and they take it and spend it for the economic benefit for other areas. So you want to hold on to these people. They're earning wages. They're contributing to your local economy. You want them to move here. And so I just want to leave you with that point for this particular slide. And just to show you where they're coming from, the map on the left, the darker blues, show you where most of your workers are. So obviously, again, you might not be able to read this, it's a little fuzzy, but 60% of your workers are right here from Fayette County. But you can see this is pretty typical for an area like this where most of your workers are coming regionally. So these are people that aren't coming too far, but look at the bottom of this table. Again, maybe you can't read it. I'm going to read it for you. Greater than 50 miles. This is commute to work. Again, workers coming here, over 50 miles to work, 4,600, 12%. Don't you think that some of those 4,600 making that commute every day, over 50 miles, there's a good chance they'd live here, right? With gas prices and just the wear and tear on car, all those kind of things. So there's a good chance you could grab a lot of these folks that are dealing with these long commutes. All right, so a lot of the data I just shared with you, we pull from a lot of sources. Here's where the real work for our firm contributes to what I'm going to share with you. So this is an example of multifamily apartments. So this is where our staff has contacted, let me get some water here. This is where our staff has contacted apartment managers, leasing agents, management companies, and we asked them about the apartments in your area. So we surveyed 39, that's not all of your apartments, but it's a large share of your apartments. And we asked them tons of questions. This is a summary of what we found by different housing types, and I'll cover these a little bit more in detail, but it's basically, typically, not always, this is probably the higher price stuff, and as we move down and we get into these other types of programs, and some operate under different types of things, but this is probably moderate income, $50,000 to $80,000 for your area, all the way down to the most affordable. This is probably people that make less than $50,000 a year. So typically least affordable, typically most affordable. We show you the projects, the units. Look at that, 2,400 units, 9 available. That is not a lot. Your occupancy rate, 99.6. You typically, for a healthy, this is great for developers. This is great for property owners, right? High occupancy rate. This is good. We're making money. This is a housing needs assessment. What are the needs? This is not good for the citizens. This is not good for the employers. I'm going to show you what your employers tell us about housing, what it's doing to them. This is not good news for them, because if they're trying to get workers to come here, to move here, you got 9 apartments. I'm going to show you your other alternatives. You just don't have a lot available. So this is a challenge for the area. You want vacancies. You want that to be like 94, 96% in terms of occupancy. You want apartments available or for sale housing. You want that available so people can move around, so you can attract people. People's incomes climb. They want something nicer, can afford something more. Get married, divorced, have babies, all these things that we all do and go through life. You want some vacant units of people as their lives change, their circumstances change, that they can move into something. You don't have that here. So this is affecting your current residents, but it's also affecting the potential residents for this area. All right, so again, if I'm thinking about again, this matters to the community, but thinking from the developer standpoint, an investor standpoint, lender standpoint, and we have an area that isn't growing a lot in terms of households, guess what they're going to look at, folks? They're going to look at that occupancy stuff I just showed you. Okay, this market has a high occupancy rate. This might be a market that I want to go into. These are the wait lists. So number of projects that will be surveyed by these different programs types, and then how many maintain wait list, the percentage of these properties that maintain wait list. But look at the wait list. Market rate, 100 households. Tax credit, which again, I'll talk about these a little bit more specific in a second. 37 households or 2-year wait to get into one of these. How about government subsidized? Far worse, 293 households, 2-year wait. So in an area that's not growing, I promise you, developers, lenders, investors are going to look at these numbers and go, wow, we've got some serious pent-up demand. And one of the things I'll do, whether you want me to do it or not, I have developers, we do over 500 site-specific studies a year around the country, so that's studies for just developers on a site. They've got a site, they don't need to know, is there a need for that project? Is there an opportunity for us to develop in this market? I'm going to contact them. When we're done with this, I'll probably start next week. Go to Fayette County. I've got all this data. Whatever you need to answer, I'm going to help answer you that, because I want developers to get here and look at this market for an opportunity. But for those I don't reach, if you do your jobs right and market this really good, you're going to reach others that will look at these types of numbers. So, takeaway, you got significant pent-up demand for all types of housing. It's not just the lowest income households, even for market rate rentals. All right, so this is the market rate rental supply. And I hit some of the highlights on the left-hand side, show the rents, show the mix of different bedroom and bathroom combinations. Again, I'm trying to arm this study for developers as they start to think through where are my opportunities, what kind of housing could I build. They will look at these different metrics. A couple things I probably should point out real fast. So most of the rentals have rental rates below $1,000, but there is a property that's dominating this market. I won't go into that specific property, but it's a nonprofit community, and so they really strip down some of the features and things they offer, so it's kind of suppressing these rents to make it look like they're lower than they are. What are developers looking for? Something like this. We have rentals, again, not good for the citizens to pay over $1,000, especially those that are working class and struggling financially, but developers are going to look at that and go, oh, we've got units that are getting over $1,100 a month. If I was doing market rate rentals, there's an opportunity for me to get some premium rents. So they'll look at those kind of things, and I wanted to make sure that they understood that. Tax credit housing. So this is the low-income tax credit program. I'm not going to get into the details. Simply put, for this area, that is affordable housing for those that make roughly between $50,000 and $80,000, roughly. There's a lot of rules to it. So it's not government subsidized housing, but it's affordable to lower income households. And so as this shows you, we had 305 units, 4 vacant, 1.3%, so a very low vacancy rate. I put on here too, in terms of what kind of units, you have almost half of these are 1-bedroom units. That's a little out of normal. You usually want more 2 and 3 bedrooms. If a goal for this community is to try to support families both here already, or those that might want to relocate, you will need more affordable family-oriented houses, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, maybe in some case 4 bedrooms. And then these show you the rents. Under this program, you have certain restrictions in place that keep these rents down low to make them affordable, but nonetheless, kind of gives you an overview of what the tax credit rental supply looks like. Again, takeaway, 4 vacant, that is not sufficient. And like I said minutes ago, the wait list on this is up to 2 years for tax credit housing. So you got people waiting to get into this type of product. Government subsidized housing, there's different, I broke it out in different ways, not really relevant to you all, but the point is, if I took these 168, so 1,500, so roughly 1,800 units, go down that where I marked it in red, 2 vacant. 2 vacant out of roughly 1,800 units of government, 1,700 government subsidized units, not very much. Again, these serves households that make less than $50,000 a year. Another thing was, again, these are properties that operate with a subsidy, so a government subsidy. There's also what's called housing choice vouchers. I don't know, probably most people are not familiar with that, but the Housing Authority has these vouchers, they issue them, and so, Laura, you're a low-income household, you have to get on a wait list, by the way, Laura, and it's maybe a 2-year wait. But finally, you got one for you and your family, so we give you that voucher. Laura can take that voucher and go use it at a property that will accept them. Not these government subsidized properties, just other properties, or a house, somebody's renting their house, a duplex, a small multifamily property, whatever it is. If that property owner will take it, Laura can use her voucher. Problem 1, she had to wait forever to get it. Okay, she got it. That's good news for Laura. 865 of these vouchers are issued in the county. 201, so about a quarter, can't use their vouchers. This has become a national problem in the last 2-3 years. This was never a problem before. If you had a voucher, there was a good chance you could find somebody to take it. You can't now. And we've got in some markets, that's 40% or 50% of these vouchers that are issued. That's not good for the community, and here's why. You don't care about affordable housing, you don't care about subsidized housing, but you want economic opportunity, you want money to come into this area. Guess what, folks? These vouchers, when the government subsidizes rents, basically, again, Laura's example, she's got the voucher, she can only pay $500 of a $700 rent. Federal government will kick in $200 to pay the difference. That's federal money that's not getting here because these people cannot use their voucher. So you are missing out on opportunities of federal revenue coming in here that could help your local economy, but more importantly, to help your residents. All right, drink again. So this is much of the same information, but all I wanted to do here was, again, breaking out market rate, tax credit, government subsidized, for which you are all now experts on, and show you it doesn't matter where we were. When we cut up, this is one of the few slides I have on the submarkets. Whether it's east, north, south, west, look at this. Everything virtually full. Virtually full. Same thing. So there is no part of this county that has escaped the problem of a lack of available rentals. It is county-wide. And so as you all think about approaches and solutions, while individual communities may come up with their own approach, I would strongly encourage that as a county, you work in unison because you're all in this together. Everybody is facing similar challenges. And again, it doesn't matter what affordability level we look at. Everybody is struggling in terms of vacancies. Probably irrelevant to everybody in this room, but I just want to illustrate, we arm this thing with so much incredible information. So if you're a developer, these are the things you're looking for. And so I want to make sure in terms of Laura and Misty and others, as you market this or you build tools or resources available, you have the capability to do some awesome things. And I'll talk through those things and help you if that's a route you want to take. But you have all this data that you could repackage, whether it's a publication, a flyer, a website. I mean, there's so much you can do. And so we can help you with that because we have all this data. It's basically repackaging however you'd like. Okay, that is out front. Okay, so we have it's a one page, it's one single sided, okay, big page. There's a summary of the housing needs assessment with some of the highlights, and so if you didn't grab them, I guess they're out front, so make sure you grab that. But what I'm talking about is doing maybe something more complicated, more involved, but actually could be pretty effective in terms of attracting development. All right, so if you can't rent an apartment, what else can you rent? We call them non-conventional rentals. So that's a house, a mobile home, a duplex, a unit over a storefront. Anything else that's not an apartment, that's a non-conventional rental. I didn't want to ignore this piece because guess what, folks? It actually makes up, people probably don't realize this, it makes up about 80% of your rentals. So when people think of rentals, typically you're thinking of apartments. No, it's this. This is where your housing stock is, your rental housing stock is. Most of these rentals, people are paying anywhere from $500 to $750 is the bulk biggest share. What did I have? Oh, 30% of them. And then another 22% pay between $750 and $1,000. So that's what people are currently paying. You're like, okay, that sounds kind of affordable. That's not too bad. Okay, that's what people are doing currently. What do you have available? We looked at what inventory, our staff is really good at what they do. They tried all different sources, made all kind of phone calls to see what you have available out of these to rent. Most of these have rents over $1,000, especially if you throw utilities in, which could be another $200 or something like that. This kind of rental starts to get expensive for a lot of the folks that are here in the county or people that would relocate here. They're going to look, I can't find apartments. You had 9. What else can I rent? They'll go look at these. They'll get online. You don't have very many. Did I get the number on here? Thought I had it up there, but I don't see it. Do I have it here? Yep, I got it here. Okay. So these are what we found is available. 65. 65 of these rentals. Okay. We had 9 apartments. 65. That's good, right? We got more of these. This is good for our market. Yeah, it's good relative to the apartments, but it's still not good. 65 of these. If I take those 65 and compare it to all the non-conventional rentals you have in this market, occupancy rate, 99.4%. What did I say before? At a minimum, you probably want this closer to 96. So here we go again. You have a shortage of rentals, not just the apartments, not all those people waiting to get a housing choice voucher, and all those voucher holders that cannot use their vouchers for a variety of reasons. Same thing for the non-conventional rentals. So it's a whole spectrum of housing alternatives. You have a shortage. And again, we show their average rents, but if I start to throw in utilities, these rents get expensive. All right, how about home ownership? Forget about rentals. I can't rent here, but maybe I make enough I can buy a house. Let's show you historically. Blue bars here, these are the numbers of homes sold every year from 2020 up to 2023. By the way, this went up through, I think this went up to like October, and we projected out what would the full year be if sales stayed on the same pace. So this is a apples to apples comparison. You can see, again, the blue bars dropped. You have less homes being sold this past year. That's normal for a variety of reasons, less people putting homes on the market. Interest rates are high, less people buying homes. So this is a normal trend. Green line, this is your median home sales price by year, topping out at $155 here in 2023. Around the country, in most of the markets that we study, and then I see national numbers as well. This line goes like this. Most markets are plateauing. Some markets, the home prices are dropping. Fayette County, years keep going up. Now, it's not a lot, right? You're at 150 last year, 155, so it's 3.3% or something like that. So they're going up. Again, not a lot. But in a market where people are struggling financially, the prices are continue to climb despite what's happening in other markets and around the country. But it also shows you the level of interest of people wanting to buy homes. I was in the back earlier, back of the room here today. There's no way, you guys in the back, Dr. Patrick, and there's no way you can read this. So let me just tell you really fast. What this is annual sales by market, by these different submarkets, east, north, south, west. Number of homes sold every year, slightly declining in the east, and then look, again, dropping in these other 3 submarkets. So basically all of the submarkets are seeing some kind of decline in terms of the sales volume. But let's check out the home prices. Again, east, north, south, west. This is the median sales price. You can see it was climbing, but then the east market, it did drop in 2023. But the others all went up to some degree, or at least stabilized. So again, a lot of the trends countywide are truly countywide by these different submarkets. Less homes being sold, but home prices aren't really tapering off no matter where you are in the county, for the most part. All right, what can I buy? This is what's available. This would have been as of, midsummer. Okay, so middle of June of this year. What could you afford to buy, or what was out there to purchase? You had 325 homes. The graph is probably the best illustration here. These are by different price points. So again, if you're in the back, can't read, less than 100,000, 1 to 200, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and $400,000 and higher. Here's where the bulk of your available inventory is priced. I will tell you this, when most of the markets we study around the country, again, many similar characteristics of Fayette County, I don't see this, folks. This is different. Most of the markets that we study around the country, this bar would be down here, this would be down here, and then you'd see a spike of all these $400,000 homes. So, do we have a lot of homes here that's available to purchase for younger families, first-time home buyers, moderate, lower income households? You do. So almost over 200 homes, priced under $200,000. Now, we did not physically inspect these. Like what we did, by the way, for the apartments, we physically saw every one of the apartment properties from the outside and rated them, so there's all good kind of detail for them. We couldn't do that for 325 houses. But we did get online and look. My staff did drive around, and when we saw a for sale sign, we would stop and kind of check out that home, at least from the exterior. But even through online research, yes, you have a lot of homes under $200,000. But a lot of these homes are not in the best condition. There's a reason you have 97 homes priced under $100,000. So on the surface, it could look like you have homes that are affordable to lower income households or, again, first-time home buyers. But the quality and condition of, not all, but many of these are in such a case that, okay, I might be able to get a home for $175,000 or $150,000 for my first-time home purchase, but I don't have the money to fix this up, to weatherize it, to get it up to modern, not remodel, so it's something exotic. I'm just saying get it up to modern day living standards, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second. So yes, you do have housing here. It's affordable to first-time home buyers, but it's still a challenge for those lower to moderate income households. Here's the other issue with the market or this inventory, just like the rental supply. When I take those 325 homes that are available compared to all your owner-occupied housing, we have what's called an availability rate, because these could be occupied and somebody's just trying to sell it. So we call it availability rate, 0.8%. For the for sale market, you want that to be 2 or 3. So you're less than half, at least half of where you should be. So again, you can't find rentals. Proportionally, you cannot find for sale alternatives in this market. The other thing I'm going to mention, again, I don't know what the goals of the county are, but this is a problem. If a goal is to bring in higher income households, executive, managerial positions, which I showed you, you've got a lot of people taking those $75,000 and higher jobs in this area, as I showed in an earlier slide, where are those folks going to move? Right, these are people for a healthy economy. You want these people here too, because they're going to have more disposable income to spend in your businesses and your stores, right, and just help your local economy. You don't have a lot of housing available for higher income households. So a lot of challenges in the for sale market, limited availability, some condition issues that probably keep those prices down. How am I doing on time, by the way? Laura, do you know what time I've got left? I'm okay? Okay. All right, so this is, again, this kind of gets to my point, talking about available inventory. Look, a lot of those homes I was talking about that are lower priced, a large chunk of them were built before if you can't see in the back, this is before 1950, product between 1950 and 1969, 1970 to 1989, 1990 to 2009, and 2010 to present. Not a lot to purchase here that's built in the last 30 years or so. Look at the bulk of it. So yes, we got a lot of affordable homes to purchase, but they're 70 years. In fact, I was looking at because we have the individual listings for them. Some of these homes are 90 to 100 years old, and when you look at them, they need help. So again, yeah, you have affordable housing, but it's so old in some cases that it's not really reasonable for lower income households to be able to purchase it and then renovate them. And again, this might be tough to see, but this is the product built before 1950. Look at the, let's take median, $112,000. Okay, so it seems affordable, but again, it's older. I want a new home. I don't want to deal with maintenance and putting money into this. I want something built in the last 14 years at this point. 374 is your median. How many families can afford that? I suspect there's a lot of people in this room that can't afford this. And so that makes a challenge for somebody that wants something new. Let's go back to even stuff that's built since 1990, so 1990 to 2009, almost $250,000 a year. That's still a challenge for a lot of people. So your lower and moderate income households are really going to have a tough time finding anything built in the last, well, heck, let's go back to 1970. Look at the median list price there, almost $250,000. So your people that are going to buy affordable, again, first-time home buyers, looking for something that's affordable, they're generally going to have to get something that was built probably pre-1970. So that, again, I know I've said this repeatedly, but that's a major thing to kind of keep in people's heads. All right, what do we got here? Oh, and this is the same thing. So these are your 4 submarkets. This one, folks in the back can finally read something that I have up here. So these are different submarkets, what's available to purchase. I'm going to talk about this in a second. What share does that represent for the county as a whole? What year, the average year built, and then the median list price. All right? Availability rates of 1% or lower. In any of these submarkets, what did I say moments ago? You want it at 2 or 3%. So again, no part of this county has escaped the housing shortage for for-sale housing. No part of this county has escaped age. I mean, the East, you got 1971 as average year built. Look at these others, 1938, 1948, 1936. These are older homes, so it's across the county. How about the median list price? Now you start to see a little difference, right? $275 over in the East. Most of these are under $160, but again, there's a correlation between age and price. So the challenge is countywide. All right, so one of the things I said earlier, and we're closing in on this, the ending. One of the things I said earlier in this presentation is you've got a lot of the projected household numbers for lower income households expected to decline. And what was the caution? I said, y'all, do not think that means we do not need more affordable housing. I showed this wait list, the vouchers that cannot be used on those challenges. But here's other things that we looked at. This is what we call substandard housing. This is a federal definition. It's either people living in overcrowded housing units, or it's people living in, believe it or not, folks, in the United States of America, Fayette County, it's everywhere, you have units that absolutely do not have complete plumbing or kitchen facilities. It's not a big number, but say it to those people that live in these housing conditions. Almost 1,500 households in this county live in substandard housing. So they're housed, they're good. No, these are people living in housing they should not be in. So either this housing needs to be replaced, or it's got to get modernized and fixed. So home repair programs, there's a lot of things that can be done. This is a challenge for the community, and for the most part, it's universal. I mean, every county has the shares of these people facing the challenges are very similar across the board. So really, it's a county-wide issue with quality of housing. All right. Again, you're thinking we've got people living in housing, they're taken care of and they're fine. One, I talked about the condition that the housing stock they're living in. How about what they pay for housing? Again, these are federal definitions. This is not Bowen National Research. At the bottom, housing cost burden. These are people that pay over 30% of their income towards their housing costs. So if you pay over 30% by federal definition and just industry standards, that's too much. All right? So I have numbers here showing percentage-wise the shares of renters that are housing cost burden here in red, homeowners, so almost 40%, well, countywide, 37.5% of the renters, 18.1% of your homeowners paying over 30% of their income towards rent or homeowners, their mortgage. How about severe cost burden? These are people that pay over 50%, 50% of their income towards their housing cost. What do these folks have left over for health care, good food, clothing, just the essentials? They don't have a lot. Countywide, 1 in 5 renters pay over half of their income towards their housing. Much better, 7.7% of their homeowners are paying over 50%. But still, you have 12, well, let's go over here, there's probably better numbers. 5,300 renters, housing cost burden, 7,100 homeowners. But look at this, this is the heartbreaking piece. You got 2,600 renter households, over 3,000 owner households that pay over half of their income towards their housing costs. They're housed, but are they adequately housed? And that's the discussion that this community needs to have. So I know communities have challenges and sometimes resistance to affordable housing, but you got people living in housing they shouldn't be in. You got people living in housing that they really can't afford, but this is all they have, and so they take it. And if you want to talk about economics, if people are spending 50% towards their housing cost, again, combined, was that $5,600? They're not going to spend much more money in your economy. So retailers out there, this is bad news for them. They want people to have some extra money so they can purchase, go to the restaurants, right? Buy more groceries, whatever it is, to help the local economy, increase more job opportunities. This is a challenge economically for the county. All right, so out of all the slides I do typically, and again, you may not be able to read this, so I'll read through some of this just to show you what you have here. To me, this has become, I just started doing this about 2 years ago where I illustrate this, actually even used it in our studies. And this is one that kind of hits home for folks. As you start to think about, again, economic, what this means, what does housing mean to the local economy, but how about the people that are here? All right, so let's take this for example. So we looked at your top 30 occupations. And I have 2 slides because I couldn't fit all 30 here, so you're going to see this twice. But this is the occupation type. So at the top, again, if you can't read it in the back, it says retail salesperson. We looked at the lower quartile wage or annual wage of these people, meaning the bottom fourth, $23,000 a year. If I took the median, the midpoint, they make about $28,000 a year. And then I put in here, what kind of rent can they afford at the lower quartile? So again, like entry-level people taking these jobs for the first time, no experience, those kind of things, make less money. They can afford a rent of $577, a median of $720. All right, how about they want to be a homeowner? They can afford a home at $76,000, almost $77,000. We're at the median level, $95,000. Anything you see in red with these rents and these home ownership opportunities, that product really doesn't exist in your county. Home ownership, again, you have some lower priced homes, but for a typical home buyer in this area, because I use, what did I end up using? At the top, you can see a 2-bedroom rent of $1,090, which is it's a federal number to say this is what this would be normal for this market. Or we took the median list price for your area of $149,900. So again, what's available to purchase, almost $150,000 is the median. These reds are all below that. So it's basically saying, if you are in one of these occupations, there's a good chance you can't afford a reasonable, typical rent or home ownership alternative. So this is not healthy for the economy. I did the same thing again for, I got the same one in there, don't I? Yeah. So nonetheless, it's the same information. The point is, we got a lot of people that are struggling financially to afford these. And so what it does tell you is, again, this is just one wage earner. So you could have 2 in the household, or somebody could have 2 jobs. But what this does say is, you better have 2 jobs. You better have another wage earner, or otherwise you can't rent or reasonably buy a home here. You are not expected to read this table on the right. If you can and you're in the back, you have the most amazing eyesight ever. This is what we have in the study just to show you some of the questions and answers we get and the results. But here are the key findings from stakeholders. So this would be probably a lot of people in this room. Elected officials, could be planning department, economic development representatives. So it's people that are leaders in the community. We asked them, we get 36 people responded, so great job by Misty and Laura to get these people to participate. What did they say in terms of the product that's needed? Rentals under $1,000, for sale product generally between that $150,000 and $200,000 range. Some of the other highlights, what are the issues that they think, I'm going to tell you what the residents say, but in a minute, but what do they say the challenges for the residents themselves? It's a high cost of renovations, a lack of down payment, home purchase affordability. What are some of the barriers that maybe are stopping residential development from happening? Labor and material cost, cost of infrastructure, that is normal in markets all over the country that we survey. What are the top priorities according to the stakeholders? Clearing of blight, support new construction, availability of home repair loans, quality and safety of rental units. All right, this is what the residents think. We asked a lot of questions. I selected just some of the highlights I thought were most relevant to you all. What are the housing issues that they're facing? Cost burden, which you now know what that is. So people paying excessive amounts towards their housing costs, income towards housing costs. I don't have sufficient income or money for a deposit, security deposit or down payment. I've had to move in with family or friends due to lack of available, affordable housing. We asked them about affordable, or what type of housing. Now, you can see this is a little bit different than what stakeholders are saying. The residents are saying that we need really affordable rentals, those less than $500, home prices less than $100,000, different types of housing needed. What are some of the, again, this market-wide, not necessarily their issues, what are some of the things affecting the local housing market? Not affordable, poor quality, housing, undesirable location neighborhoods, not enough housing or limited availability. All the things that, all the data that we've shown to you here in the last 40 minutes or so, the residents are saying, yes, these are the things we are facing. And then we even mentioned, asked them about product design and some of the things that they thought could be built and supported here in the community. So that'll be kind of the information that developers, again, will be looking for. What are the people seeking? They'll have those answers. All right, so if there was another headline or highlight from this study, and I know Paul's here, one of the reporters, so Paul, maybe this is one of the highlights that, in my opinion, I think needs to be made. So we wanted to hear from employers. Pre-COVID, when we did these survey with employers, the results were drastically different. Since COVID, everything has changed, and now employers are starting to feel this. I was mentioning to Dr. Patrick, when pre-COVID, when we'd ask economic development people, what are kind of questions are you getting asked when a company's looking at putting a business into your community? And Laura, I don't know if you and Misty go through this, but it used to be, what's the tax base like? What's the workforce like? Those school districts, things like that. Now, what's risen to the top when economic development people, this is what economic development people are telling me, when they get contacted by prospective businesses that want to relocate, housing is, if it's not the top three, it's number one. That is the biggest issue in terms of economic development from a prospective business coming into the area. So this has become so critical to the research we do to tell the story. Because again, if you are a person, an entity, an organization, a neighborhood or whatever, and you're like, I don't know if housing should be a focus for our community. Because let people build homes and buy homes and rent places, that's on them. This is an economic challenge for the area. Your employers are feeling it. I showed you just a second ago the slide on the wages and what the employees that are facing. I showed you the residents, what they're saying they're going through. Let's hear from the employers. So we asked them, what issues are your employees facing? Lack of available and quality housing. All right, so you've seen that repeatedly in this presentation. What is the housing that's most needed, according to what employers are saying? Entry-level workforce, for-sale housing, generally below $200,000. Affordable rentals under $750,000, and then even, this was one of the higher results too, these are all the top results, rentals between $750,000 and $1,250,000. All right, here's the headline. We asked employers, is housing impacting your business operations in some way? And we asked them all different ways, how? 25%, 1 in 4, you had a lot of employers here, right? 48. 1 in 4 employers are saying, yep, housing is hurting me as an employer. So we asked them, how? How is it hurting you? And we got difficulty attracting employees, 42%. Difficulty retaining, so these are your own residents. Employers are saying, I'm having a tough time holding on to my employees. Now again, there's a lot of reasons for that, right? And we all probably heard it, or those that employ people, I myself, a lot of reasons why you have a tough time attracting people and retaining workers. But the question was, what is housing doing to you? We didn't ask them about wages and types of job. No, we asked them, what is housing doing to you as a business owner? It's hurting them. All right, here's another big headline. We asked employers, what if you solved your housing issues, affordability, availability, all those things we've talked about here today, if that could be solved, would you hire more? Almost half said, yeah, I'd hire more if we could solve the housing issues, because otherwise I can't hire people. So again, for those that are trying to connect, especially elected officials who have a lot of challenges and a lot of tough decisions to make, to me, I would be making sure that people understand this, and I want the elected officials to understand this, is, look, this is a challenge for your local economy, and we could have more jobs, potentially, based on what the employers are saying, if we could solve our housing issues. So housing is absolutely an economic issue that should be addressed. And again, when I did this years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, results totally different. Not impacting us, 5%, 7%. Would you hire more? No, we probably wouldn't hire. We're hiring what we need to hire. Housing wasn't a problem. Every time we do these surveys, these numbers keep climbing. It's becoming a bigger problem nationally. All right, a few more slides left here. All right, so this is the housing gap estimates. A lot of stuff goes into this. I could do a whole hour presentation on this. In short, these are the final numbers. All right, so you can see these different numbers. These are the units needed by these different affordability levels. Top one has to do with program type, the 50% and so forth. But really, for you all, just to understand what I have here, this is household income. So those that make less than $50,000 a year or can afford a rent of up about around $1,250, you need about 294 of those rental units to solve all of your housing issues, getting people out of bad quality housing, alleviating the cost burden numbers that I talked about, accommodating new people that are coming here, getting your millennial to move out of your basement and go into a rental, get them out, right? You want to solve all your housing issues. 294, 672 is your biggest. So again, this is for rentals roughly between $1,250 and $2,000. But look, folks, it's across the board. And for communities that are looking at, can we attract higher end residents, attract higher end developers? Absolutely. You believe it or not, it's going to be hard, and I promise you, these are good numbers. This is really reliable. You have a need for almost 500 units with rents over $2,000. Most of you would think, there's no way I'd pay $2,000. There are people that will pay $2,000 for a rental. And I've done this study before where I did it for a community and the folks I was working with the city in Kentucky. They're like, Patrick, those numbers are ridiculous. There's no way people can pay that in our community. Similar to Fayette County. I said, they will, they do, it'll happen. And so I did a presentation. 2 years later, they said, Patrick, somebody followed your advice. They built 600 of these units over, let's say it was $2,000, I don't remember the number. And that developer's now doing a second phase because those things rented up so fast. I couldn't believe that people would pay this. They will pay these rents. So that's the point. Again, for marketing purposes, for things to promote, for economic development purposes, but to developers, there is opportunity to do some higher end stuff, but you absolutely have a need for those that are lower income and can afford a lower rent. So obviously a need there as well. And then this is the same thing for sale housing. The only one that the numbers were coming back negative is home prices under $167,000. Part of that is because you do have a lot of homes that are priced under $200,000. Part of that is you have that base of lower income households declining, so that all kind of contributed to this number being negative. But look at everything, and it doesn't mean you can't do something for $167,000 or less. It'd be hard for a developer to do it, to pull that off financially. But nonetheless, look at this. You got a need for all kind of price points. The biggest being basically anything over $260,000 to $410,000 is the biggest, but you still have need for all types of for sale housing at different price points. So again, good news for developers and investors of for sale housing. There's a lot of opportunities here. And the last slide is recommendations. I'll keep these broad because we do go into some detail in the study itself. But the thing to keep in mind, you have a county for which we have cut up into 4 submarkets, but then you have multiple municipalities. Every municipality is going to be different than another, right? Whether it's politics of that community, whether it's the financial resources, whether it's the policies and incentives they already have in place and those that they're willing to add and things like that. So it's really different from community to community. So it's really hard to have a single plan for a county like this that has many different needs and obviously, again, different goals for different communities. So I put this at the top of the list. I could have put the second bullet point, next step plans. Like, what are you doing next? But really, to me, the top one is the one. Identify a champion. I've been to too many communities. I'm not saying it's the case here. I've been to a lot of communities where they get a study done and everybody's excited and they have good turnout. And okay, we're going to do something. There is nobody leading the charge. There's nobody taking the reins of this task. And so there's a lot of ways to do that, and I think it's even one of my recommendations in here, is that ultimately, whether I think you have I guess it's an inactive housing coalition or consortium, right? So you have something here already in place, it's just not active. Is that the group? Is it a group that already exists here in the county in some other capacity? I know the redevelopment authorities here, so that doesn't have to be them, but you can see an example. You have entities in place. Is it Fay Penn? I'm not saying that's the solution, but you could see you have entities in place that can take charge, take the lead, or do you form something new? Do the county commissioners create a task force? I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. So again, somebody has to take charge, and if you don't have that person, the best intentions are never going to move anywhere, and it will break my heart to think that this study is going to sit on a shelf the proverbial shelf, or in this case, just sit on the website and nothing happens. You've invested a lot of money into this. Our companies work really hard to make sure we armed you all with good information and understand the potential that exists. But who's going to do this? So that's really number one to me. Again, next step plans was the second one, which really could have been the first. Ultimately, you have a lot of goal setting you want to do, whether it's, do we want to support new housing? Probably should. Do you want to support efforts to restore some of this housing that's substandard? Probably should, but those are things you all are going to have to decide. Where do we allocate our resources? Where do we put our focus? So again, setting different goals, provide some guidance on that. We have in here develop targeted geographic housing plans, meaning, again, one part of the county might want to have certain plans and efforts, while another might have its own things that it wants to do. My advice is that whether you have another gathering of folks, elected officials and so forth, or you take this on the road and go to the different municipalities and then to the commissioners themselves. I know there's some here today. But ultimately, you want everybody kind of working in unison together, but you can still have individual plans for different areas. We give, again, some guidance on that, but it's ultimately going to be up to the individual communities. There's a lot of stuff. We put a lot of information in the study on possible policy and incentive efforts that can be made. We can give examples. We've case studied a lot of communities. I don't think I put it in the study, but I can share that with you all in terms of what other communities have done, so you can learn the good and bad, what they've done to try to incentivize and encourage residential development. A common trend that I think could apply here to some degree is supporting efforts to put housing near your public transit corridor or closer to the downtowns, whether it's here in Uniontown or Connellsville, something like that. But that's where all your infrastructure is. That's where people can catch your public transportation or, again, easy for them to drive to and from work. So think about supporting efforts to put housing in those areas. We're doing this here right now, this next to last one, formulating education outreach campaign, and that's really to educate the public, the decision makers, what is happening with housing, what is our housing situation like, what are the things we can do moving forward. So this is step one. Your flyer is another one. Tons of stuff you can do to get word out. Again, the newspapers I know will cover stuff as well. And then lastly, market the area's housing needs. You have I think an exceptional study that can be marketed and promoted. There's ways to do that. I can share ideas. I think we might have talked about Developers Day, where you can bring developers in, and I've been part of that, and those are pretty cool to have developers come in, and I'll present something much like this, but I'll focus more in on the what developers are looking for, but you can have the county engineer come in and talk about infrastructure. You can have somebody from the lending institutions come in and talk about financial resources and things like that. So there's really cool things that you can do in terms of trying to attract developers, and then even creating different resources. One of the ones we mentioned in here is, could you create an online resource that's like a one-stop shop for everybody, citizens, if they want to look for housing, how do I find housing, who do I contact to get one of those housing choice vouchers, how do I contact realtors, who are the realtors, but even for the development side, you don't have this, at least at the scope that I think you could do, like potential sites for developers, other resources they could tap into. What I have in my head, I've never seen anybody create, but, and a quick example, and this will be the last thing I say, is you have, FAPEN has a good website, right? And a lot of economic development websites, if you've ever been on them, they have, here's potential sites for industrial parks, come put your business here. Here's our tax rates, and it informs a potential developer of a business. What are my opportunities to put a business into this county? I have never seen, and it could be economic development, I'm not putting that burden on you, I'm just giving an example. Why isn't somebody out there doing housing as well? Because it's so critical to your employers, your stakeholders, everybody's saying this is a big thing. Why don't we have a website for that? It could be one that already exists, or do you create one? Tons of ways to do it. I think Lebanon County, Pennsylvania, we did their study this past year. I think that is one of the things that resonated with them, so I think they're moving forward with trying to do something, so that might be one that you explore, and I could reach out to them if that's something you want to do. With that said, that's all I have. I know I probably went way past my time, but there was a lot of good stuff, so when you walk out of this room, hopefully you all are housing experts, and you really know what's going on, and a lot of those rumors or things people speculate, you got the numbers now to know what's happening. So thank you for letting me do this.
Wow, thank you. Patrick, I think you deserve at least another cup of coffee and a pastry for that.
I'll take it.
It's a lot of information. So thank you. We're going to take a very quick bathroom and coffee break, And then Misty is going to lead the next part of the agenda, which is going to be our moving forward discussion. And there'll be opportunities after that to ask specific questions of Patrick. I also want to acknowledge, I see another board member came. Hi, Todd Castile, and also Senator Stefano. Thank you for being here. Representative Charity Krupa's staff is here. Hi, Dawn. Hi, ladies. Who else am I missing? Am I missing any other elected officials? Sean Conway from Congressman Reschenthaler's office. So we have all the right folks here at the table. We have some realtors here. Will you also, anybody from the real estate? Great. And we've got some lenders. Okay, great. So we've got the right audience, Patrick, I think, to take in all this data. And with that, we'll take a quick break and come back. Misty, you're it.
All right. Well, thank you for staying for this portion. We've got some great discussion partners here. Truthfully, it's unscripted. They're going to react to what Patrick has said, talk about the trends that they're seeing, also talk about any programming or development that they're aware of or what their hopes for the future are. Just so you know, that's what you're doing. So first we have Crystal Simmons with the Redevelopment Authority of Uniontown. We have Luann Kenny with Berkshire Hathaway. We have Rob Slater with Slater Engineering, and Tammy Nedrow, who is the Chief of Staff with Scott Dunn, who also has experience in construction and development as well. So I guess I'll just open it up to you if you want to, whoever wants to talk first. Any surprising reactions? What were your key findings? Do you have plans? Did any of this resonate with you? I know Luann had some data that she wanted to share. So Luann, you want to go first?
No.
No?
I will.
Thank you.
So,
Is it good? I was going to say, I don't know if they can hear you.
Okay, so I pulled a little bit of research, knowing what we were going to talk about today, and I looked at data from 2008 through 2010, and then the average days on market were 77. Now they're 47. The inventory, and that's the problem why we need so much housing in Fayette County, the average months of inventory was between 7 and 15. Now it's less than 3. And that's like, you better buy. And I heard some people talking, there's usually for every house that sells, there's 5 buyers waiting behind that buyer that got it to bid on it and get more. I did some research while he was talking, and right now today in Fayette County, there's 118 active listings. If you count foreclosures and short sales, it does bump up to 204. 50 to 100 of those are between 50 and 125,000. The 101 to 199 range, that's a big range. It's 125,000 to 650. So there's definitely a shortage. I mean, we see it every day in our market.
Thank you, Luann. And Crystal, I know that the Redevelopment Authority is doing a lot. How do you feel about this study, and what are you doing currently, and how do you see this study affecting how you move forward?
The assessment was reassuring. It supported a lot of things that we do have in place right now, and even the new applications that we anticipate submitting throughout the year. This will be excellent data to include in those. One thing that we run into is this housing rehabilitation, and while we would like to have new construction, constructing a new single-family home beside 3 blighted down buildings and 2 rental units that are falling to the ground, I mean, no one is wanting to purchase that particular property. So we have kind of geared towards housing rehabilitation and pursuing those funds. We have an active list. We've partnered with 504 USDA to get those applications in. So a lot of it just fits. It just fits in what we're seeing. Even the interest in buying, when we do get to that point for creating those single-family homes, how are we making that interesting to them? So I think that it's going to help us tremendously. When I came here in March, I said, where's our housing assessment? And this is when I learned, it's underway. So I was excited to hear Bowen was doing it. I know that I used to work off of one in Greene County, and it was the best study that we had there. It aged, but it was still great data, so I think this will be too.
Thank you. And Rob, Tammy, any thoughts, any reactions, any development that you know of currently or what you'd like to see?
I think the study's amazing. It's a very comprehensive document. I'm very impressed. I definitely think it can be used to entice not only local businesses, but outside developers to support housing in our community. You know, we're working on a project with Andrew, which is Thompson's Crossing, which is about 80 acres in the Mount Macrina property. We've identified areas within that development which we want to be a mixed use, part being residential. I think this is perfect for that. It targets outside developers that I think we could basically hand them the study and say, this supports exactly what we're trying to build. So.
Thank you.
Well, I can just attest to the results of from experience. I have a father-in-law, recently moved him into senior housing in Westmoreland County. So it is a need here. His house went on the market in Indian Head and sold within 3 days, never even went on the market. It was a neighbor, and the family wanted to stay. I have a millennial daughter, and her husband bought a house that was constructed, first-time home buyer, prior to 1970 because that was what they could afford, a good house. I have a son who is built his second home, sold his first starter home for, I want to say like 170. It sold sight unseen from somebody out Midwest for $170,000 in 3 days. So, and they constructed a new home for $300,000. So you hit everything dead on. The millennials, the seniors. I can't wait to see where we go with this study.
Any other following thoughts or anything? And then we're going to open it up to, because we are running out of time, we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. So any last words before we do that?
Let me add something real fast.
Yes, please. And I'm
So,
going to turn on the mics.
one of the things I want to comment, because your comments kind of resonate with me personally too, because we've all gone through, we know family members that are struggling with housing or neighbors or friends or whatever. And one of the things I'm really concerned about, and I suspect a lot of you here are too, is this younger generation, home ownership is getting so far out of reach. I stayed with my mom last night. She's 86 years old. She bought her house in 1992 for $90,000. It's in Peters Township, which is a nice community in Washington County. And I was like, Mom, what do you think this house is worth today? She goes, oh, I have no idea. So I get my phone out and I get on all those typical websites, Redfin and others. She's like, what are they saying this is worth? I go, go ahead, take a guess. So she's like, I don't know, maybe it doubled, $200,000. I go, higher. And we kept going. It was like almost $350,000 for this really tiny home. Now, it's a nice community, a great school district. That's out of reach. That is really out of reach for most people. And my 30-year-old son just bought a house 2 years ago for $240,000 in a very nice area, great school district. He got lucky, and I won't go through that whole story. He just got totally lucky. Somebody was looking out for him because otherwise he shouldn't have gotten this house. But for most young people, I am concerned. I got a lot of young people in my office, and I think I pay good wages. There's no way they're going to live in the suburbs of Columbus, and they're going to have to choose some neighborhoods that maybe don't have the best school districts or just not the nicest or safest. So I'm very concerned, not just Fayette County, but nationally, of this next generation. I don't know how they're going to do it, and I don't even know the solution because I think it's getting so out of reach that I don't know what government can do. I don't know what foundations can do. It's almost like all hands on deck, and maybe that's the takeaway here. A lot of people are going to have to come together and start to work on this because if somebody thinks that this is a local government issue alone, you've you saw the data. You've underestimated the need here. So it's a significant need, and a lot of people are going to have to help work with each other. So with that, opening up to questions to the audience. Is that what you want to do?
Have you ever seen cases where where major employers through tax credits or some scenario would help provide funding for infrastructure or something so that
Yeah.
would help provide that base? Is there any way that's done? Could you explain that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question and an excellent solution. So I think we asked this for your employers. I just don't remember what the answers were. It's in the study. But we did ask, would you want to be you employer, would you want to be part of the solution? And I can tell you, again, a good example of that pre-COVID, post-COVID examples I was sharing with you. Pre-COVID, when we ask employers, do you want to be part of the solution in housing? Less than 5% would say yes. That's getting closer to 40% in most of the markets because employers are, what was the example I gave you, right? Employers are feeling it. They're being hurt by housing. So now it's not less, yes, we got to address housing. I want to be part of this. There's a lot of examples around the country where employers have gotten involved up to the degree of actually being involved with development of housing, some donating or selling maybe land that the business owns to say, look, I'll sell this at a discount as long as we know we're going to put affordable workforce housing in here that's going to meet the needs of our workforce. So there's a lot of examples in between those of communities with employers getting involved in some capacity. Sometimes it's like down payment assistance on a home. A lot of employers can't do that, but some can. I'll give you one example, but there's others I could share, and I could obviously share with you all if that's a route you want to take. Rock Island, Illinois, we did their study about over a decade ago, but John Deere tractor, I think their national headquarters is really, it's the next town over. I can't remember the name of the town. But what is it? I think it's Moline. Yes, correct. Good trivia. So that's where John Deere's located. What John Deere did was in downtown Rock Island, and this may be a good example, maybe that could be done here in Fayette County. That downtown Rock Island was kind of forgotten. And so when you drove through the downtown, there was a bunch of buildings empty. And so a developer, John Deere, and the city of Rock Island got together and said, what can we cobble together to start to put housing in our downtown? And so the employer's role in this one was John Deere. At least one of the things I know they did, they may have done others, is they did provide down payment assistance to employees that were under a certain wage level that said, well, we want to get them into home ownership. And then the city made concessions, the developer did certain things, but in the end, this was a public-private sector kind of combination where an employer was involved. Now, that was over a decade ago when employers weren't super engaged with housing. So there's more examples around the country. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, or again, I live in Columbus, Ohio. I'm a Pittsburgh person forever. But Columbus, Ohio Children's Hospital, right around Children's Hospital, that neighborhood was blighted and just kind of forgotten. Children's Hospital started buying up all these homes that were abandoned or whatever, put money into them, and did successfully sell them back to staff of the hospital. So now their employees were right there, close to work, which is one of the goals of many workers, but it also turned this neighborhood around that was being neglected. So lots of examples, and we can send those, but that's, to me, I think employers got to be at the table having a conversation and seeing what they'd be willing to do. So I'm glad you reminded me to mention that.
And Patrick, I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. I mentioned this with you and Misty. I serve on the board of a national affordable housing nonprofit that, and actually on the public policy, federal relations committee on that. So there is talk in the Congress and with the housing community of a workforce-based tax credit.
That'd be great.
Which could be combined. Now, will it get any traction, Sean? That's a big question with all the other big issues in Congress. But we are getting bipartisan support for many of our initiatives, which are to make the historic credit more friendly to housing, to combine these tax credits, to be able to take some of these older properties, Crystal, and make them, in that range and make them attainable. And really, a lot of times it takes both tax credits, the historic and the low-income 9% credit, to make a project work. And Rob knows a lot about that too. But I'm just saying, if we could get this workforce tax credit, I don't know what all it entails, but I am working on getting more info, and we'll distribute that. So, okay, next. Todd? Okay.
Yeah, I'm a chair, one of the chairs of Faith Penn, and one of the things that we struggle with is we bring these employers to our county, and the first thing they want to know is what's in our school districts and what kind of available housing we have. We know we have the problem, that's why we're here today. But one of the things we lack here is we've got all this beautiful land surrounding around it, and we can probably get infrastructure there relatively quickly, but we can't seem to draw national home builders that'll come in and say, okay, we want a 100-unit development, whether it's multi-use with multifamily, splits or flats for people that are aging, or even the workforce, to fit into that model. And as a former developer, I can tell you, you can't build a good affordable house for $150,000. You can't do it.
Right.
Your infrastructure costs, you're going to plow $45,000 to $60,000 into every unit just in your infrastructure to build to get it ready. So, I don't know how we get to that. And you can see, this goes back 10 years. Well, I remember 10 years ago, our average sale in this county was $90,000 for a home. There's no way you can even almost put a lot in a development for almost that kind of money. So how do we draw sort of, we're struggling. We've got some home builders here today, but we need somebody that's going to come in. And we've had somebody come in recently a few years ago and take a bite at it, and they didn't have a real good experience with it. And it was Ryan, who's a well-known name, but they really struggled to turn the units. So, it's a chicken and egg kind of thing for us, but we need to draw that national attention we can get a home builder and come in and say, this is what we know that we can sell in your community. We can give you townhouses for $170,000 a year. We can give you next door to that. We can give you houses from $250,000 to $350,000. Yeah. Because you look at our income potential. I read your whole report. It's excellent, by the way. Thank you. So you look at the numbers in there, and where do we fit? If we're only catering to what's here now, we can't do that. Right. We have to cater to what is coming. And we've got lots of opportunities, as Laura well knows, because I'm chairman of the real estate for Faith Penn, so I know what's coming. And, in order for us to meet the need and seal the deal to get the employer to come here, we have to have a couple things, and that's it. We're struggling to draw the national because you've got developers here that will, we don't have big developers in Fayette County. So, we need somebody to come in and say, listen, if you've got the land, we'll take 20 lots down a year. Then it's easy for somebody to say, okay, I can do the math. Here's the math. I can develop it. Bang, bang, bang. But we can't get a national developer. You can get a home builder that might be able to build 4 or 5 houses a year. Well, that doesn't meet the need of the developer to turn the units to make it worthwhile financially. Yeah. So I'd like your thoughts on how do we draw those national players into the game.
So the good news, or bad, I guess how you look at it, is you have a study now that points to the level of need. So you now have data versus just saying, hey, we have a housing need. You've got something that you could say, look, we have evidence of the degree of need and all those different price points, and whether it's rental or for sale. So you now have something to educate people. We just, developers, we just finished a study, 10-county study in West Virginia. I'll be presenting that in 2 weeks, and it's for their Regional Economic Development Office. And so now they are tasked with trying to get word out to development community to say, this is our documented need. And so, I know they're working to try to figure out how do they get word out. And there's a lot of ways, and I could help you all think that through, whether it's just putting material together, whether it's identifying publications to get information. It could be just something as like Fayette County's housing needs or something is documented. Contact us for this information. Development opportunities. If that's what you want to promote, which I absolutely think you should. A lot of development opportunities here, folks, right? I kept saying, bad for the community, good for developers. Bad for the community, good for lenders, investors. That's the message you want to get out. And so you can do it. That's just what kind of resources do you want to put towards that? You could take it to the level of having somebody speak on your behalf, and whether it's trade shows, whether it's advertising in publications. There's a lot of stuff you can do, but you got to be proactive in doing it, because I think some communities, right or wrong, they think, okay, we got a study done and we're all excited to get, let's build housing. And they just sit back and think it's going to come automatically. Look, the nation's facing a housing shortage, so you can build in any county, right? So why are you different? So at least in one sense, you're different, that you are proactive and that you took the steps to look at your housing market. to say, we know what our needs are. And I've heard this a lot too, where we do a study and then within 6 months, because I'll follow up with you all because I want to continue to learn how things are going. People say, Patrick, your study got projects off the shelf. People were they didn't know. They thought there was a need, but they didn't have anything documented. And I can't believe that I've been told this before, but some people have actually used our studies, and I know we have some lenders here. They've used our studies to walk into a bank and say, it's probably not their final thing they submit to get a loan, but it starts that conversation with the bank to say, look, there's clearly a need. I want to do this kind of product, and it says my price point, there's a need for 200 units. I just want to do 80. But it gets the bank to start thinking, okay, this isn't just your pipe dream. You've got somebody that has studied this. So a lot of ways to kind of encourage developers to come here. As I said in my presentation, I'll do my part. I was not asked to do this, but I just do it because I'm trying to help my clients and trying to help the communities for which I was brought in to study. I will try to link you all up with developers that I know would want to do housing in this area. So anyway, if that's a priority, I can certainly help you all figure out.
Yes, it is. And also, Todd, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have some zoning issues we need. I know if Earl were in the room, he'd be saying, look, we don't make it friendly to townhome development, for example. So we really need to look at the zoning and the code. I mean, that's something we're going to have to tackle because one size does not fit all. From what we've seen, we need all the above, right?
Yeah.
We need that.
We're missing the whole market.
Yeah.
We don't have multifamily.
Right.
Well, and Todd,
Pretty much one developer that's got a big chunk here.
Right.
if you go to Morgantown, there are multifamily developments everywhere, and this is what I've been saying. But if you look at our zoning ordinance, the maximum for any zoning district that allows for residential is 4 units. So you have to go in front of the zoning hearing board to ask for more. And the common response is to say it's going to be low-income housing or Section 8, and everybody fights it, and it never gets done. So that's something that I think we really need to look at. And Todd, with respect to your discussion about infrastructure, I keep thinking that this is a perfect complement to what FAPEN does in pursuing housing, because you guys do a great job trying to bring businesses into the community, but we have to be able to tell them where their employees can live. And I keep thinking that a public-private partnership to build infrastructure and create opportunities for housing, how is that any different than what we do with business? So if we could pursue that, because no developer is going to come in and put the infrastructure in for a couple 100-acre residential development, and it's exactly what you're describing, which is townhouses, lower, medium, maybe even some high-end homes in different areas. And that's something that I think we could look into and talk about.
Absolutely. I think we had someone else. Mark.
Yes, I'm a local contractor. I've worked with Todd in the past and Mr. Slater there. I've lived outside of the area, and what I see coming back to this area and being in business here in the service industry, I'm trying to recruit people from areas outside of here because we can't find the people here. And when you bring people in here, there's no local amenities for anyone to be able to do. So I have a young son who I wanted to go into partnership with me in my business, but he says, Dad, I don't want to live there. There's nothing there. There's no housing here. There's nothing for the younger generation to do. I think we're missing a boat. I mean, we have to look at things a lot differently. And you know what? I understand. Things are very hard to change. But I think on a local level, we have to look at things a lot differently. I've lived in D.C., Miami, Philadelphia areas, and I've seen substantial growth in those areas. We don't have it here. We don't offer anything. So as a local contractor, I'm frustrated with this whole county because we have nothing to offer, nothing, other than Ohio Powell. What do we have to offer? From a businessman, it's very frustrating to me.
Berkshire Hathaway has a huge relocation division across the United States, and we get calls all the time to bring people in, tour, and the main reason the businesses don't come is because there is no housing for them. And they love the tourism, they love Ohio Powell, Nemacolin, but there's nowhere for them to live. So, the industries go other places, the businesses go other places.
And as far as, what you're saying, nothing here to offer, my millennial married a Pittsburgh boy. They moved to Pittsburgh, they moved to Butler, they moved to Clarion. They moved here. He wanted family. He had never experienced family like here. And my boss, Commissioner Dunn, considers our area Pittsburgh's playground. We can afford to live a good family life, and we're close enough to go get some of those amenities. Morgantown is just a half hour away. Pittsburgh, an hour. I think the possibilities are here. There's a lot of hidden gems here that people don't realize. The kids don't understand that, we have history. We do have culture here. It's just promoting a lot of it and introducing it to them and reinstilling some family values. I would be curious to ask on the study, those commuting over 50 miles to work in Fayette County, do you know what trade that is? Is it medical? Is it WVU? Is it?
I think the only data we have will be incredibly broad job sectors, so it won't get down to specific types of occupations. Even so, for example, it might be like
an asset to developers as to where and.
Let me see what I have. I don't think it goes beyond, like, say, service industry. Well, that could be a lot of different things. But even like medical, I wouldn't know how many are coming in. I don't think. I would know how many are in the medical profession or just whatever trade it is. I don't think that data exists.
So over here, please.
Hi, Tammy. I just want to say as an elder millennial that I definitely agree with your assessment of the livability of this area. Patrick, thanks for your study. I look forward to getting into it. There were a couple slides that really screamed to me the need for what I would call missing middle housing. So the stuff between single-family homes and apartments, so duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, cottage courts, and those kinds of things. So people have mentioned changes in zoning. One thing that I would like to see maybe the county pressure municipalities on is removing the barrier to those kinds of homes that are generally more affordable and more tax efficient in terms of supporting the infrastructure that they require by removing single-family zoning and opening up those kinds of opportunities for a lot of the small developers that we do have here that can start on those things right now. And then what that does is it frees up a lot of the existing character-full housing stock that we have in our legacy communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so those are the kinds of things I'd like to see, and I hope the county can provide direction towards that.
Yeah, it's obviously not apples to apples, but I think one of the best known in the country, I believe, is Minneapolis, where they went, so you're familiar with that. So they changed their zoning, and I don't know if they abolished single family, but they did something with the single family zoning. It opened up development at a level that they never could have fathomed. Mentioning, because I know the question was about how do we build lower priced homes, right? That you can't really build anything under 150, 160. No, you really can't. Maybe some of that missing middle, if you did like condos or something that was like higher density, maybe you could pull it off. But think of housing this way, because I think people just get too in a narrow focus. You could build, again, I'm not a developer, and I know we have some in the room. Okay, what if you built like 200, 225? That's your price point. Well, a lot of those people that were in the first-time home ownership housing, okay, my income has climbed. I'm going to move up. And now it's freed this legacy housing, I think is the term you use, which is correct. It frees up some of this older housing that for other first-time home buyers, they could move in. So by solving by building some of this moderate price homes, you allow these people to move up and free up their housing. And you could take that even for senior housing, right? Where do seniors move? They want to downsize. Now, a lot want to stay in their homes, but some would downsize if they could. Where are they going to go? You could solve two things at once. If you started to support and encourage senior-oriented senior-oriented housing, whether that's for sale or rental, you have to figure that out. But if you did and you had senior-oriented housing, allowing them to downsize, you have now freed up that housing stock for people to go buy. So by providing one solution, you've created two. So there's a lot of ways to think through this. You just got to be thinking of the domino effect of some of this stuff. So.
Any other?
Hi, my name's Kelly, and
Hi, Kelly.
I just want to echo Bill. First of all, will the study be available to the public on
Yes.
FAPEN's website?
Thank you, Kelly. I
Okay.
should have mentioned that. We're going to make it available on our website, okay?
Great,
So it'll be
thanks.
there, because that's the whole point, right? We want to share this data.
Great. And I know you guys are all housing professionals, and I'm not. I'm just a resident. But I'm just here because I've also lived all over the country. And as you guys set direction, just emotionally, again, not really like an expert, but I'm a little cautious of the tone of new subdivisions because, and Patrick, maybe you have it in your study, I'd be curious, some of our newer subdivisions, I'd really like to know how many of those have attracted people to the area versus just sprawled the residents that we had out of our inner core, making our inner cities in the county more vulnerable. I can tell you my parents' neighborhood is full of people that used to live in the city, and you know what happens then. So I think we want to attract people, but I just don't know where the data is. I'd like to see if that happens. The other question, oh shoot, and if we do, I would like them walkable. I'm sorry, I blanked, but
Well, but you echoed something I had said, right? One of the things that, just a suggestion we had in there is you probably want to start to think about building or converting maybe some old office buildings. I drove past a lot of buildings down here that are sitting empty, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a great candidate for doing something with. And so that was not part of our study. We have done that before. We build an inventory, but if you were thinking about goals and things that you could do as next steps, my advice would be start building an inventory of these structures that are potential candidates. You don't have to do all the due diligence at a developer. Let them figure out, is there asbestos or something, something that's going to deter us. Let them do the legwork. Just identify the property so that they can come to the table, and whomever's spearheading these efforts say, yeah, we have 52 potential properties, buildings that could be converted into housing, and make them functional again and tax generating for for the betterment of the community. And it would help. I'm sorry. I'll stop this here in a second. But focusing on the downtown areas, because if you're losing the young people, right? It's been echoed now multiple times, and you're saying what we're hearing all over the country. It's like young people, and you saw the data, right? You're losing young people, and you're losing them to many, just people. Period. You're losing them to Allegheny County. Why? It's probably the jobs, but it's also probably the culture, the social life, all those things that attract young people. And so, again, this would be a big undertaking to try to figure out to reinvent downtown Uniontown, for example. But you could, and again, that's not necessarily the city's burden alone, but you got to at least start building some of the tools and resources so that developers go, okay, this community, I'll take this case, Uniontown has their act together, there's a housing needs assessment, and they've started to think about zoning was mentioned, right? And so maybe it's zoning, we start to rethink zoning. Here they found all these sites you can do something that really sends the message out, like we got our act together, we have a plan, but we need people to come and start to develop here.
And we have started compiling a list, actually, of available sites, both for redevelopment, but also for new construction.
Great. Yeah, I just remembered that I wanted to know if in the data there's a projection of the tax burden for the taxpayer of infrastructure to new places.
We didn't look at infrastructure.
Okay, that's just something we have to consider. I hope the county considers the cost of the infrastructure for new development for the taxpayer.
And that would, again, I'm not an advocate for one thing or another, but if a strategy was to try to rethink what do we, and again, I'm just using Uniontown as an example, if we're going to rethink downtown Uniontown for potential development, well, a lot of your infrastructure is already here, right? You run it out to those subdivisions, who's paying for that? And so it's here, and it would expedite the process and keep costs low, and so, but there's much more layers of complexity to just redeveloping something downtown, but you can see the advantages of doing something like that.
Thank you. Great comments. So we would like to wrap up with comments from the county commissioners, our 3 commissioners, and get your reaction to this. We want to start out. Who wants to start out? You want to? There we go. Scott Dunn, Commissioner Dunn.
First off, I want to thank Penn State for hosting, and I think Fay Penn's done an extraordinary job with this study. And thank you, Patrick, for all your hard work. Yeah, I have a lot of things written down. I actually have a couple of questions. Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
So the vouchers, where we're not using all the vouchers, and this might be a federal question, can the vouchers ever be used for toward a down payment of a single-family home?
Not that I'm aware of.
They're typically for rental.
Right, I'm aware of that, but I mean, if we're not utilizing them.
That's a great question. I mean, it's something I think at the policy level that's been talked about. And we've even looked at, as seniors, I can tell you on the national level, we've been looking at social services, trying to help seniors with those issues, with using the existing vouchers. It's been an uphill climb, but something like that has, I think, been mentioned. I don't think it's gotten...
Yeah, let me comment real fast. That's how you want to think, right? You got to think out of the box.
Right.
Like, can we reuse? Can we redo something? So whether it's existing buildings, or again, I don't think you can use the vouchers, but you want to start thinking conceptually, like, can we take something and make something new that's like that in this case would help people get into home ownership? So I think you're on the right track of thinking that way.
So, and then going to infrastructure in a city, we actually have a lot of old infrastructure in some of our towns here. So it's not, if you added 5,000 residents in downtown Uniontown, there actually may be still an infrastructure need.
Oh, I bet.
And I think back, I'm from a town of 1,000. We know we have infrastructure needs. We actually have new housing in our little town, but all that new housing is tapping into old infrastructure. Yeah. So regardless of whether it is repurposing, there is some infrastructure needs that are still available. One of the things we've done as commissioners is we've instituted an infrastructure bank where we will actually loan the money to municipal authorities.
I saw that,
and in some of our in our municipalities, so that they can do infrastructure projects. So that's one of the things there. And if anybody's listened to me over the last few years, I firmly believe that we can start building back population in Fayette County simply with housing.
I
Not
agree.
only are we've seen that with the commuter numbers. I mean, that's the 40% commuter, that's a 5% increase in population in Fayette County right there. With attracting businesses, we already know that we need it to attract businesses. We also need it to have some of our businesses that are here expand. And so, this is, as we try to attract businesses in our core industries in Fayette County, the additional core industry is this housing. And even though it's not an industry per se, it's going to be needed to attract all the other industries that we want to attract to Fayette County. So I'm anxious to see, what we do from here, what collaborations we make. I've always prided myself that Fayette County is a county where people love to work together. Organizations come together. I go back to the COVID vaccine clinic that we had at the Uniontown Mall, where Penn State nurses injected the vaccine prepared by Pitt students, at a West Virginia University hospital clinic. So if those three universities can get along, we can do a lot in Fayette County. So I've always been proud of that, and so I'm anxious to see how we can come together collaboratively to make this happen. Because this is, I'm so happy with the results here. Because it has, quite frankly, kind of verified. What you thought. So, so thank you very much.
Great comments. All right, Commissioner Lohr?
Yeah, thank you. Very good study. Very impressed with what it consists of and some of the numbers, because some of those verify some of the information that I've gotten over the years from realtors and from friends of mine who've sold their houses. But one thing that indoctrinated in the first term that I was a commissioner is that some of the things we're trying to help on the blighted areas, and some of the developers in here, you may want to keep an eye on this, because it's something that if you see a piece of property somewhere and it's got a blighted piece of a house or something like that on it, the municipality could possibly obtain that with a $50 registration change fee, period. And you can walk in there and tear the property down and then rebuild that and make it back, or go back on the tax rolls and then put housing back in place. That did happen in Franklin Township several years ago when this was first brought into gear, that a developer was there, tore the house down, built a brand new home. The developer did well because he made money. And it can cut some of that cost down on the building process too, if there's some land like that. And then get it back on the tax rolls, and everyone, that was a winner all the way around. We've also talked to Heartland Fabrication down at Brownsville about that same process, and they've actually talked to Brownsville, the borough of Brownsville, and those areas down in that area with that same process. So some of the things that have been put in gear have really been used and vitalized, and it's a very, very strong program through the Redevelopment Authority. There's a blighted fund that is available now through the addition on the transfer fees for deeds and titles that helps with tearing down some of the blighted areas that then open up. The big one that we did was the old Brownsville Hospital. And now that's a piece of property that is primed for developers to come in and possibly build an apartment or a complex or something that could actually help this housing issue. The one thing I've used, and there was a business that's local that was getting ready to move because they were looking for a place to build plus housing, and that was a big issue with them because a lot of their employees, as you were saying about the 1,400 or 14,000
yep,
that come in, he was looking for a location here in the county that's close enough for his employees that live in Westmoreland and Washington to keep close by. And he had a certain distance that he wanted to stay in. Well, he was looking in Westmoreland County, and Westmoreland County's taxes are higher than ours. We have a better tax level than what all the counties around us pretty much have. And it's something that's a huge selling point that I do know is there. And these are things that we've worked on. And what I've been working with the Redevelopment Authority in particular, I'm sorry, not redevelopment, sorry, Andrew, with the Housing Authority, is we're looking at a couple of different projects. The Campbell Estate down in Connellsville, that was a project that was built in the late 40s and the 50s, which was row housing that was from that time period, is now gone. Rob has an idea on some of this stuff too. That information, or that's ready to go out for bid, and build now. But they're also looking on a further future plan. And some of that plan is in Perryopolis and then also by the hospital up here in Uniontown. But the one in Perryopolis, I've talked with them about making that a senior gated plan. Because I have a teacher of mine who's retired, she and her husband, are looking to move out of the area because they want to downsize off their house. And they'd like to go into a program like that where they live in a gated community with the security along with a smaller house, which is easier for them to take care of. All these are factors that come out on your survey. And probably I'll close with this one, or with these two. Several years ago, a friend of mine put his mother's house up for sale online. It was tagged at $345. It sold for $365. Wow. And just as recent as 4 days ago, the same scenario took place, It was tagged for $325 and it was sold for $345 online within a day. So realtors, I know what you guys are going through. You're probably gnawing at the bit trying to find houses to sell because you know you can sell them. And the friend of mine who I was talking with, she could walk away and retire right now. And she says, the market's too good. She doesn't want to do it. So I appreciate your study. I appreciate FAPEN and also Penn State University for sponsoring this. Good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And last but not least, Commissioner Vasides.
Thank you. Just want to say I think this is a great study. Thanks to FAPEN taking the lead on it, Penn State for hosting this a couple times. I think we knew there was a problem, but now we know the details of this problem. Just some things that really caught my eye were the 14,000 people that are commuting in and leaving every day. If we could just garner a portion of that, we could really help our situation with the gaining population. The trend has slowed down with losing population, but we still have to turn that around and try to make it where we're gaining instead of losing. I think, the main reason is the housing issue. I've said that over and over again over the last several years. So we know what we have to do there. I was also taken back by the less than 1% with rental availability, and that is a huge problem for the people that live here now and bringing people in. So, and it really affects employers. They're having a hard time, expanding and retaining the people they have because of these issues. So we really have to make this a top priority for this next. We're starting out another 4 years, our term of office, and we have to make it a top priority as commissioners to turn this trend around and get something happening to solve this problem. And I'm confident we can do that, but we're going to have to do it with a broad group. It can't be just us. I mean, we will provide the leadership to get this done, but we certainly need the committee with FAPEN doing what they've done with the initial study, the redevelopment authorities, the housing authority, and any other stakeholder that has a part in this process. It's got to be a total team effort to turn this around. But we saw it coming. In fact, we've done some things this past term to try to create more housing. We expanding our business park at Northgate Highway there. That I know Rob had mentioned that. We're going to have a housing component there. That's going to be a major part of Phase 1. So we're well on our way to making that happen. So that'll certainly help. We also have a piece of land out by the old Dunlap Dam that we're going to be working with Threshold Housing to create a neighborhood of homes in that range, the mid-range to upper range that is so badly needed. So we've already started that process. And as far as infrastructure, we have a couple townships that are working diligently on that and others that are certainly understanding the need now and will do it in the future. But for example, Manellan Township they had 80% of their, and maybe 80 to 85% of their township is watered and sewered now. So they're primed to be a bedroom community for Fayette County and housing development. And also North Union is expanding their sewage. So there'll be a lot of opportunities over there, which they have a lot more land and like a South Union. But so we have the infrastructure in those initial places to go to, and hopefully we'll continue with this infrastructure bank to get these municipalities to do even more with water and sewer in the future. We've already loaned out, I think, $14 million so far, just in a short 2-year period. So, but I hope from here that we really jump into implementation. I envision some type of task force that we can meet regularly and achieve our objectives and gauge our objectives. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. This is being done, and I'm sure you could guide us to communities that have similar problems as you identified today, and find out what they've done to turn things around. Somebody mentioned something with zoning. If we need to do something there, we certainly can think it out and see if it can be implemented. But whatever it takes, we have to solve this problem. And that's all I really have to say. I think we're on the right track. Looking forward to implementation now.
Great.
Let me just add something real fast then, if you don't mind. So I know we talked about the possibility of, could there be a developer day where you, again, I could come back and speak to talk about the needs. But those kind of comments for all three of you, but particularly the infrastructure, like you could have somebody, whether it's a commissioner, whether it's a county engineer, somebody to talk about, look, we are expanding infrastructure. Here's where we've done it, but we're open to doing other investment or working with the cities or whatever. But you could put a really good program together that if you feel, who knows how many developers will come, but you could have developers sitting there. And I would think from a developer standpoint to go, oh my gosh, they have done the research, they're open to help, they've already done some infrastructure improvements, but there are other things that they're doing and thinking about, and maybe they're talking about zoning, and that appeals to me as a developer. You could put a really good program together. You could bring in those from the lending institutions and talk about, here's programs we have available, funding that's available at the state level could come in. I've seen some really good programs that I've been a participant in. I'm not an organizer of it, but I can share those agendas and the type of speaker. So there are so many. Look, I'll leave you with this. You got a housing challenge. You're not alone. It's a national challenge. But a lot of communities have done a lot of things. And so it's like you can make your own roadmap, but I'll give you, or I'll share with you all these things that people have tried. And then you can, if you have a task force, they could talk through those and go, that's not too realistic for our community. That doesn't fit. That's not a priority. You could cobble together a very effective, proactive program. And so I'll help however I can.
Yeah, that seems to be the next step in this process. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we have done as much as to date significant things with low-income type scenarios with tax credits. We redid the White Swan Hotel. That was becoming blighted, and we provided a lot of apartments there. We built 2 senior living facilities out in Fairchance, which are fully occupied. And we're doing a lot of scattered homes around the Gallatin Avenue area. Did I miss anything else? I think those are the ones that we've done in recent years that you've been involved with the housing side of things, Rob Slater from Slater Engineering.
But that's exactly the stuff developers need to hear. Success stories, things you've done so that they know, okay, I'm not the first one coming in to try to do something. So
yeah, we got to do more, though. It's just a start.
You do, yeah.
I would just add, thank you, Commissioner. Great comments from all three of you. And I just add that from what Todd had said earlier about the economic development side, whether we're talking with an existing business in the county, like one of our major manufacturers here, which we were last week, about a major expansion, or we're talking with a new prospect, and we are talking with several. One of those would have numerous jobs averaging 100,000 a year plus benefits. These are the jobs we want, but we're always back to where are we going to house those people?
There's also a mic away from here. There's also a housing apartment complex that's slated to be built in Manellan Township, right below the development on Route 40, where Walmart is there. Maggie Hardy McGurko, or Maggie Hardy, is going to be building that, and it's several. I don't know how many units it is, but it's probably a nice percentage of apartments that are going to be built there, and it's going through the Manellan Township Planning Commission now to be started probably this spring or summer. Okay.
Hey, I thank each and every one of you for coming and caring about this. It's one of the biggest issues we have here in Fayette County, but I know that we have the right group of folks to get behind this and figure it out. So thank you all. It was a great event. Patrick, wonderful study. Thanks for a great presentation. Thanks, Misty, for your efforts. So a big round of applause for everyone. Thank you.